الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى وقل رب زدني علما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Welcome to the second session 2 out of 2 from Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala's Kitab al-Ilm, the book of knowledge, from his Riyadus-Saliheen. And there were 17 hadith in this chapter, and we left off, or alhamdulillah, we looked at last week the first 10, and now inshallah we'll look at the remaining 7 ahadith of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala's presentation on the book of knowledge. The first hadith is the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri رضي الله عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يشبع مؤمن من خير حتى يكون منتهى الجنة رواه الترمذي وقال حديث حسن. The Prophet ﷺ in this hadith indicates that a believer will never ever become satisfied with good حتى يكون, until his abode, his end place, his final destination will be Jannah. So the believer never becomes content with khair, and khair is referred to كل ما يقرب ويقرب من الله تعالى, all that which can be considered to be a means of getting closer to Allah Ta'ala. This is why there's a beautiful dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقربني إلى حبك. Oh Allah, I ask your love and the love of those who love you and the love of those deeds which bring me closer to your love. So the believer, his objective, his sole purpose, of course, is to worship Allah Ta'ala and applies himself in this world and works hard towards that in doing and acquiring good deeds which pleases Allah Ta'ala and eventually is a means to be admitted with the permission of Allah into Al-Jannah. Now, one of the greatest things of khair and goodness that a person can seek, and that's how it's connected and it's brought, this hadith specifically, although it's in general, speaking about all types of good deeds that the believer is never content with, is not content with and continues to work, but it's connected to this chapter because one specific deed, it stands out amongst the rest of the deeds, and that is to acquire knowledge. So there's a general encouragement ala a'mal al-birr, that a person continue and acquire good deeds and be constant therein. وَمِنْ أَشْرَفِهَا, but amongst the most noble is al-ilmu ta'alluman wa ta'liman, to learn and to share and disseminate and teach knowledge. لِأَنَّهُ يَضْبَطْ الْعَمَلِ, because it brings the actions and the deeds in a certain context, and a person is then thereby, he would be a person thereby then would be able to ensure that the amal itself, it is sound, وَيَكُونَ حَاكِمًا عَلَيْهِ, and it will also be a means to measure, is the deed correct or is it not correct. And that brings us and explains further the next hadith. But before we do that, I see the sun has come in the way, so I'm going to inshallah just remove the camera, adjust the camera. Our second hadith for today would be the hadith of Abi Umamah radiyallahu anhu, who said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال فضل العالم على العابد كفضلي على أدناكم, that the virtue of the learned person over the devout worshipper is kafadli, like my status and my virtue, ala adnakum, upon the least, a person of faith, but of the least degree. ثم قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله وملائكته. So first and foremost, of course, the status of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and with a ordinary believer, or the least amongst an ordinary believer, there can be no difference. There's a major difference between them. Similarly, there's a major difference between a person of knowledge and a person who's a devout worshipper. And what does the Prophet ﷺ say further? إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ وَأَهْلِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Indeed, Allah and His angels and the inhabitants of the earth and the heavens and the earth, حَتَّى النَّمْلَ فِي حُجْرِهَا, even something as small as the ant in its hole, وَحَتَّى الْحُوتِ, and even to the extent of the fish, a fish in the sea. So these are parables or examples to show that, even the most smallest of things, of like an ant on the earth, and including all creatures on earth, and even in the ocean, of something as simple as the fish. And we know that about approximately 70% of our world or earth is actually of water. What do they all do? لَيُصَلُّونَ عَلَى مُعَلِّمِ النَّاسِ الْخَيْرِ. They make salah, they make prayer upon the one who is the one who teaches people goodness. And this la yusullun, this prayer or salah itself, depending upon who it's referring to. So when it's referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means that Allah ta'ala shows rahmah to that person who's teaching people goodness of matters of their deen, which bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when it's referring to that, the malaika, they make salah upon this person, this teacher of goodness to people, then it's referring to that they seek Allah's forgiveness on behalf of that person. وَمِنَ الْآدِمِينَ وَالْحَيْوَانَاتِ. And as for the human beings and animals and creation of Allah, they are making dua for this person. So this again encourages us ala fi'l, to acquire that action, in other words, knowledge, and those actions in general as well, مَا يَعُمُّ نَفْعُهُ الْفَائِلُ وَغَيْرِهِ, that which benefits the one who does it and also benefits others at the same time. طلب العلم الزائد عن الواجب أفضل من العبادات النافلة. That to seek knowledge more than what is the minimum requirement is more virtuous than doing nafil, optional ibadah. Because ibadah itself, its benefit, in principle, it's restricted to one's own self, while knowledge, it actually goes and helps and is a means to benefit others as well when it is shared. Al-hathu, it's also an encouragement to have respect for the learned, the possessors of knowledge, and the seekers of knowledge as well, the students of knowledge, and to make dua for them, just as Allah and the malaika and the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even something as small as the ant in its hole and the fish in the sea, la yusallun, they make salah upon the one who teaches the person goodness. Rawahu at-Tirmidhi qala hadithun hasanun. The third hadith is the hadith of Abi Darda radiyallahu anhu, wherein he says that Rasulullah, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, Man salaka tariqan yabtaghi fihi ilman, that the one who treads a path and seeks thereby in that path knowledge, ilm, sahhala Allahu lahu tariqan ila al-jannah, Allah will make easy for that person a path which will lead to Jannah. Because the person who is acquiring knowledge, inshallah, that's going to make him understand better Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the deen and the revelation, the sacred text, and inshallah bring him closer to Allah, and that knowledge will be a means for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for that person to tread that path which leads to Jannah and acquire it. وَإِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ, and the angels لَتَضَعُ أَجْنِحَتِهَا لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ, they place their wings out of pleasure, that they are satisfied and they're pleased with for the student of knowledge. They are a means of helping and aiding the person to acquire that knowledge. And one understanding as well, that they stop flapping and they also come and join those circles of knowledge where it's disseminated, and they take part in that as well. رِضًا بِمَا صَنَعُوا, and all of this is رِضًا, because they are pleased of that act of worship of seeking knowledge which this person has set out to acquire. وَإِنَّ الْعَالِمَ, and the alim, the learned person, لَيَسْتَغْفِرُ لَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, that the inhabitants of those who are in the heavens and in the earth, they seek forgiveness on his behalf to Allah. حَتَّى الْحِيتَانُ فِي الْمَاءِ, to the extent that even the fish in the sea. وَفَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ, and the virtue of a learned person over a devout worshipper. كَفَضْلِ الْقَمَرِ عَلَى سَائِرِ الْكَوَاكِبِ, is like the virtue of the moon in comparison to the remaining sun. So the light and the beauty of the moon and its size cannot be compared to the remaining stars. وَإِنَّ الْعُلَمَاء, and indeed the learned, those who are the scholars, وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاء, they are the inheritors of the Anbiya. وَإِنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاء لَمْ يُوَرِّثُوا دِينَارًا وَلَا دِرْهَمًا, and indeed the Anbiya, they do not leave as a state dinar wala dirham. There's no money which they leave back. وَإِنَّمَا وَرَّثُوا الْعِلْمِ, what they do leave back and what is inherited from them, not money, but وَإِنَّمَا وَرَّثُوا الْعِلْمِ, indeed and most certainly it's only knowledge which they leave back. فَمَنْ أَخَذَهُ, so whoever takes from this and acquires knowledge, ilm, أَخَذَ بِحَظٍ وَافِرٍ, indeed he has taken a most fortunate and a most expensive and valuable portion. So we learn the benefit and the encouragement على التوقير, to have respect for طلاب العلم, those who seek knowledge, and to also show humility to them and be pleased of that which they have set out to acquire, making dua for them and istighfar, seeking Allah's forgiveness on their behalf as well. فضل العلم, they've also learned the virtue and the status of knowledge of that which is compared to like the moon, like how it gives light. Of course, its light is not on its own, it's coming from the sun. And similarly, the knowledge as well, it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who infuses true knowledge within a person. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ, be mindful of Allah, have Allah's taqwa, and Allah ta'ala will teach you. And that light which will bring light and illumination in the life of others who surround him, and it's a means of goodness and of the truth. Al-ilmu a'zamu tharwa wa ashrafuha, knowledge is the most beneficial and the most noblest of deeds. ينبغي لمن حازها أن يحترمها ويكرمها, the one who has acquired knowledge, then let this person have ihtiram, let a person be ever respectful towards it and to deem it as and give it nobility and status within one's life and amongst others. Kamalul ilm bil ilm, the completion of knowledge is through amal, through action and practicing upon that knowledge, and to follow the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam في الخلق والسلوك والاقتداء برسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الخلق والسلوك, in all aspects of life, in terms of character, in terms of methodology. إهانة العلماء وإيذاهم فسوق وضلال, to despise or to disgrace or deem low the scholars, the people who possess knowledge, or to harm them is transgression, and this is misguidance. لأنهم حملة ميراث النبوة, because these are the ones who have taken the responsibility, and they are the carriers and the caretakers of the legacy of nubuwa. وعن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, that Ibn Mas'ud رضي الله عنه, he mentions that I heard the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم saying, نظر الله امرأ سمع منا شيئا, may Allah Ta'ala give light in that person's life who سمع منا شيئا, who has heard from us something of knowledge, in other words. فَبَلَّغَهُ كَمَا سَمِعَهُ, and he conveys and transmits it to others just as he has heard it. فَرُبَّ مُبَلَّغٍ أَوْعَ مِنْ سَامِعٍ, for many a person who knowledge is conveyed to has more proficient, is more has preserved it more than even the one who has is the one who initially who has heard it. So sometimes the student himself, he surpasses even the teacher, or sometimes the one who hears a piece of knowledge, he understands it better and preserves it to a higher degree than the one who even conveyed it to him in the first place. It's also been mentioned that in the Shara, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, ay yuhsin, he explains Allah Ta'ala will beautify and illuminate this person's face on the Day of Judgment. Now, in terms of a further elaboration of the hadith, the issue comes that ideally, yes, a person should convey that knowledge, that hadith, that knowledge as well, in a way which inshallah is exactly of how he has heard it and he has learned it and it has been narrated and reported. However, our scholars have indicated, and the majority of them are of the opinion, that a person can make riwayah bil ma'na. He can transmit to the closest meaning of the hadith or of that knowledge itself, although it might not be exactly how or verbatim of how it was transmitted to that person. But this is, of course, with certain conditions. First of all, that the person be knowledgeable of language, Arabic language specifically, and he be free and protected from mistakes which would change the meaning, using words which would change the meaning, because if a person has changed the meaning by using certain words, then that could also be a result that the rulings as well change too. Secondly, a person does not change the meanings when it comes to al-alfaz al-muta'abbad biha kal-adhkar wal-adiyah al-ma'thura, that those adhkar, those certain remembrances which have a certain virtue, or the Prophet has narrated, or those du'as which are specifically the wording of the Prophet ﷺ, then those cannot be narrated according to the closest meaning, replacing or substituting words which the Prophet ﷺ had used. Last but not least, if there's a need, if a person, alhamdulillah, has preserved exactly how it was transmitted, then that's the ideal and that's the best. And he will only then go to the second option of narrating with the closest meaning if there is a need for it, that the person cannot necessarily has not memorized or does not recall the exact word, but he will report that which he understands of the meaning to report. And that's why you would find sometimes a person saying "Aw kama qal," or something similar to what the Prophet ﷺ had said, or it's been narrated, or to the closest meaning, or paraphrasing, etc. So this again is under that theme that a person does not want to fall into those who, of course, lie upon the Prophet ﷺ intentionally, but even unintentionally as well. A person should be safe in this regard. We find many companions, radiallahu anhum, who they were narrating hadith, but they are very ever cautious. Like Anas radiallahu anhu, he says that إِنَّهُ لَيَمْنَعُنِي أَنْ أُحَدِّثَكُمْ حَدِيثًا كَثِيرًا أَنَّ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم قال, that the only thing that's preventing me from from stopping to narrate many and hadith in abundance is because I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, "Man ta'ammada alayya kadiban," that the one who purposely, intentionally attributes a lie or lies against me, let that person take his seat in the fire. And Anas says, radiallahu anhu, لولا أني أخشى أن أخطئ لحدثتك بأشياء قالها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That if it wasn't that I feared that I would make a mistake, then I would have narrated to you so many things which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said. فأشار إلا أنه لا يحدث إلا ما تحققه ويترك ما يشك فيه. So this was an indication and an explanation that Anas radiallahu anhu, he indicated that he will not narrate except for that which he has verified and he is sure of, and he will leave that which he is doubtful of. And Amir ibn Abdullah ibn Zubayr, from his father, he asked his father, that Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhum, that I don't hear you narrating from the Prophet ﷺ reports, just as that person or this person does. And he explained then, Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu, amma inni lam ufariqhu mundu aslamtu, that I have not separated from the Prophet ﷺ. I was in his company since I became Muslim. But I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, "Man kadhiba alayya falyatabawwa maq'adahu min nar." That one who lies against me, then let the person take his seat in the fire. I believe there was one point which we missed from the first hadith, which spoke about that the believer will never become content and satisfied until his end abode is Jannah. And I wanted to mention and explain, because we highlighted the importance at the end of the day, that become satisfied as well with good deeds in general and specifically with knowledge. And there's a hadith which Imam al-Hakim, he narrates, and Imam Dhahabi radiallahu anhu, he agrees with him that it is sahih, and that is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, wherein he said, "Manhuman la yashba'an." There are two people who are ever desirous, who don't become satisfied and saturated. Manhumun fi ilmin la yashba'. That the one who, first of all, is seeking and hungry for knowledge, that person never becomes satisfied and content from what that person has already acquired. وَمَنْهُومٌ فِي دُنْيَا لَا يَشْبَعُ. And another person is a person who is hungry, who is thirsty, and not satisfied and content in the dunya. And that person never becomes content. For we know that the person, even if they're given a valley of gold or a mountain of gold, then the person will not be satisfied until he has a second mountain of gold. So that's the nature of the material world and money and property, that the person never becomes satisfied, but the real satisfaction or thirst and hunger that a person needs to quench and satisfy is the ilm and of good deeds, until inshallah the believer's final abode becomes Jannah. The next hadith inshallah is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, wherein he says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man su'ila an ilmin fakatamahu uljima yawm al-qiyamah bilijam min nar." Rawahu Abu Dawud wa Tirmidhi wa qala hadithun hasan. Of course, there's many virtues. Before we mention the hadith, there's many virtues in regards to knowledge and its excellence, but as well it comes with a responsibility. And here the Prophet ﷺ is explaining one of those responsibilities in his words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said that the one who is asked in regards to knowledge which is required, knowledge is which a person needs to know of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَكَتَمَهُ, the person who is asked, he conceals that knowledge. Then what would be what he conceals the knowledge? He did not mention and express it. and many a time a person would say it by their mouth. And uljima, the person will have a lijam, which lijam comes from like the rein of a horse, which is placed in its mouth for it to be controlled. So it's almost what has been explained as min فَكَانَ جَزَاءُ مِنْ جِنْسِ فِعْلِهِ. The consequence and the result of one person's actions, that by not explaining and sharing that knowledge, expressing it, and with one's tongue, if one must, then that person will be treated and requited with a bridle on the day of judgment made from the fire. May Allah Ta'ala protect us all. So this is an explanation that when a person is asked with knowledge which is required, and the person needs to know about it, and the person does not explain and give the answer while knowing the answer, then that person will be placed on their mouth a bridle, a rein from the fire of Jahannam, a rope from the fire of Jahannam. May Allah Ta'ala protect. This is in normal circumstances. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he explained that sometimes it's permissible to delay a fatwa, delay an answer. Sometimes the matter is deliberated among scholars or a council, for example, or there's a reason why لِحِفْظِ الْدِمَاءِ وَالْأَعْرَاضِ, that to protect the lives or the honor of someone, وَأَمْنِ الْفَسَادِ, and to make sure that safety and security prevails and not anarchy and corruption. So there's different circumstances, and depending on those circumstances, and that could be an exception to the rule because of various other factors which are being considered at that time. And sometimes a person also asked to be tested in regards to their knowledge. Not that the person requires an answer, but he just wants to have a test, or there could be other reasons why a person's asking that. And depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance or the time or the place or the manner of dealing with the issue, it's not necessarily the same way or methodology. So that becomes exceptions to the rule. But in general, or the default is that when a person's asked and there's no reason why a person should not answer the question in regards to knowledge which they know of, then let that person inshallah share it, or else on the day of judgment, may Allah Ta'ala protect, it will be a rope in the person's mouth which is made from the fire of Jahannam. And from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ta'allama ilman mimma yubtahu bihi wajhullahi azza wa jal," that the one who seeks knowledge or acquires knowledge, that knowledge which Allah's countenance, which Allah's pleasure is sought thereby or through it, ilmu shari, the knowledge of the deen. So the one who seeks knowledge or learns knowledge which is the means of acquiring Allah Azza wa Jal's pleasure, and learns it with a certain intention, la yata'allamuhu, does not learn it except the only reason why he learns it, illa liyusiba bihi aradan min ad-dunya, that he can acquire through it aradan min ad-dunya, a piece or a portion from this dunya, which has been explained as maybe a seat of authority, to gain fame, to gain maybe, for example, his primary objective is to gain money, whatever of dunya, anything that basically takes one away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's seeking this knowledge which should have been only for Allah Ta'ala's pleasure ultimately, but he sought it for the sole purpose of acquiring the dunya, status, fame, wealth. Lam yajid arf al-jannah yawm al-qiyamah. This person will not sense, will not smell the fragrance of Jannah on the day of judgment. So even Jannah, MashaAllah, has a fragrance. And this is one of our senses as well. And when a person, alhamdulillah, smells some sweet, beautiful fragrance, nice smelling fragrance, then it brings about a sort of solace and peace and comfort. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to also smell and enter the fragrance of Jannah. Ameen. And it's been said, I can't remember exactly from how many years of travel or distance that the fragrance of Jannah could be smelled from. But this is an indication that this person will be so far from Jannah, even despite it being so far reaching of this smell and fragrance. But because of this action of seeking that which normally should have bring him closer to Allah, but he used it for a different reason, because knowledge itself is something which is powerful and it's moving and it's so important and essential for one's life and one's community. But a person used it for a different reason, and for that, a person will be deprived on the Day of Judgment to smell the fragrance of Jannah. So therefore, we are reminded, and we are from this hadith, the importance and the obligation of having ikhlas, sincerity in seeking knowledge, وَأَن يَكُونَ الْقَصْدُ مِنْهُ إِرْضَاءَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And a person's primary and only reason why ultimately why he seeks knowledge and acquires it is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal, and the one who seeks knowledge lillahi ta'ala, the one who seeks knowledge for the sake of Allah, وَجَاءَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا, and the dunya just happened to also meet up with him. That Allah ta'ala also opened up the material world for him. He seeked it for Allah, and that was the primary reason. And it just happened coincidentally that the dunya opened up for him. جَازَ لَهُ أَخْذَهَا, that is permissible for him as well to receive that. وَلَمْ يَضُرُّهُ ذَلِكَ, and this does not harm this person on the least. And the last and final hadith for today is the hadith So another explanation before we come to the final hadith is that the man صح قصده في طلب العلم الشرعي يمده الله براحة الجنة يوم القيامة تقوية لقلبه وإذالة لكربه. That the one who has sincerity and has rectified their intention in seeking knowledge, Islamic Shari'i knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless this person with the fragrance of Jannah on the Day of Judgment, and this will be a means of strengthening that person's heart on that terrifying and very frightening day, and it will also remove the difficulties of that on that day as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the difficulties and strengthen our heart on that day. It's also been said that the one who worships Allah on the 2 nights of Eid, Ruwiya, it's been said that that person's heart will also not die on the day that hearts will collapse or die. And that's referring, one interpretation is that on the Day of Judgment, when our hearts will collapse, Allah Ta'ala will, inshallah, make it a means for his heart to be strong. So seeking Allah's knowledge, seeking knowledge from knowledge of the deen for Allah's sake, and also worshipping Allah on the 2 nights of Eid, this is also a means of becoming strong and firm on the Day of Judgment. بخلاف من لم يكن كذلك فإنه لمرض قلبه, as opposed to the one who is not like this, that he, in other words, he sought that which should have been seeked for Allah's pleasure, knowledge, but he did it for the dunya. فإنه لمرض قلبه, because of that sickness in his heart of not having that sincerity, that person will become on the Day of Judgment like a person who is ill, بدماغه, in his brain or in his mind, يمنعه من إدراك الروائح, which will prevent him from smelling the fragrance of Jannah. The last hadith, it's an explanation and a description of the end times. It's the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhuma, wherein he says that سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا ينتزعه من الناس, that Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching it away from the people, but He takes it away by taking away the lives of the religious scholars. إن الله لا يقبض العلم انتزاعا ينتزعه من الناس ولكن يقبض العلم بقبض العلماء حتى إذا لم يبق عالما اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهالا فسئلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا متفق عليه. So verily Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching it away from people, but He takes it away by taking away the lives of the religious scholars till none of the scholars stay alive. Then the people will take ignorant ones as their leaders, who when asked to deliver religious verdicts will issue them without knowledge, the result being that they will go astray and will lead others astray. So we learn from this hadith of a warning of that which will take place. So it's sort of an encouragement, on the other hand, for us to ensure that it does not happen in our time. And so we continue to acquire and prepare the people of knowledge. And this is also a sort of a glad tiding for the people of knowledge, that Allah Ta'ala has secured and has promised that that knowledge will not be snatched away from them of what has been granted to them. And also to be ever weary, min istiftai al-jahil, to be cautious and weary to ask the person who is ignorant of the deen. And that's whether it's in person, offline, or also it's online. A person should make sure and ensure that the sources of knowledge which is being provided and which is being posted online, that they are from reputable sources and scholarship bodies and committees, and from scholars as well, which a person can trust in terms of their ilm and their taqwa. For information is a lot. The internet is like an information highway. But in terms of ilm and what exists, that a person needs to be wary and be selective. Just as a person is selective at the grocery store when picking their fruit, they just don't take from anything blindly and take anything that this seems to be appealing. Rather, a person thinks through and is selective of what a person wants to choose and would leave the rest. وَغَايَةُ الْوَعِيدِ لِمَنْ أَفْتَى بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. This is also a wa'id and a warning for the one who gives fatwa, gives rulings and verdicts upon the deen without knowledge. It's, as the scholars have said, that to say la adri or la a'lam is half of knowledge. A person understands their ignorance, but of course a person seeks then that knowledge and acquires that knowledge, but it's not harmful on the least, or it's not something which is shameful to know or to say that I do not know. I do not know. وَالتَّسْجِيدَ عَلَيْهِ بِأَنَّهُ ضَالٌ مُضِلٌ. So the one who takes leaders, and when they're asked, they give fatwa without knowledge, that they themselves are misguided and they misguide others as well. So the scholars are amanun linnas fil ard. They are those who are they are sort of a sense of security and trust for the people on the earth. وَيَنَابِعُ فَضْلٍ وَخَيْرٍ. And they are the springs of virtue and of excellence and goodness. May Allah Ta'ala make all of us amongst them. Ameen. بشارة العلماء في إتمام فضل الله عز وجل عليهم بعدم سلبهم ما أنعم به عليهم من العلم. This is also a glad tiding for the scholars of Allah Ta'ala's completion of His favor upon them, that He will not remove or snatch away that which He has blessed them with in terms of knowledge. الحث على طلب العلم ليكثر العلماء وينعم الناس بهم بالاستفادة. It's also an encouragement to acquire knowledge, so that scholars, the ulama, can be in abundance, and there could be, the people would be able to benefit from them. والتبصر في أمور دينهم, and gain insight in matters which are connected to the deen. من ادعى العلم وأفتى الناس على جهل, the one who claims knowledge and he also gives fatwa while not knowing, while ignorant of the issue. أضر بنفسه في الافتراء على الله تعالى بالكذب, then that person has harmed himself because he has attributed a lie to Allah Ta'ala. وأضر بالناس لتلبيس الحق عليهم, and he also has harmed the people as well because he has misinformed them of what the actual truth is, or لتلبيس الحق, he has almost presented the truth but deceived them of what is the actual truth. التحذير, or given them the impression that it's the truth whereas it's far away from the truth. And we also learn the warning من استفتاء الجاهلين, from seeking fatwa, from seeking religious rulings from those who are of the ignorant. أو الفتوى بغير علم, and also to give fatwa, the warning to give fatwa without knowledge. قلة العلم بالدين من علامات قرب القيامة, and also to have little or shallow or very, just a little knowledge of the deen is a sign of the day of judgment being near. And with this, we end this chapter and this last session, 2 of 2, from Kitabul Ilm, the book of knowledge of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, Bab Fadl al-Ilm, the chapter of the virtue and the excellence of knowledge. There are 4 passages which was initially quoted from this chapter of knowledge of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, and thereafter we looked at 17 hadith from 11 to 17 in this particular session today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge, and we seek Allah's protection from knowledge which does not benefit us. We all ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in ilm. Rabbana zidna ilma. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana. Oh Allah, give us, benefit us from that which you have taught us. وَعَلِّمْنَا مَا يَنْفَعُنَا, and teach us that which benefits us. وَارْزُقْنِي عِلْمًا وَارْزُقْنَا عِلْمًا تَنْفَعُنَا بِهَا, and grant us and provide for us knowledge through which we can be benefited, and you'll be able to benefit us through it as well. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي رَبَّنَا اشْرَحْ صَدْرَنَا وَيَسِّرْ لَنَا أَمْرَنَا وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِنْ أَلْسِنَتِنَا يَفْقَهُ قَوْلَنَا. O Allah, expand our chest and make our matter easy for us, and take away the knot from our tongue, and also allow others to understand what we are saying. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to become students of knowledge, طُلَّابِ الْعِلْمِ, from the cradle to the grave, and make it a means, inshallah, of our final abode in Jannah, and never ever to become satisfied, and continue on this path, and prepare those who would be able to take this legacy of nubuwwah, of ilm, to generations, inshallah, to come until the day of judgment. وصلى الله على النبي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.